Matthew Miller.
Love that guy. Love his vibe.
You
love what he's about.
We established last time you love his face. So.
I love his face. I love his whole aura, his sense of humor, his charisma. Seems like a great guy to hang out with. I love that guy.
His charisma. Yeah. Real charisma. Who's an
got away with words.
He's a regular Daniel Craig. So here he is again addressing or trying to address the fact that the U.S. and some other countries have said, oh, no, we're not going to respect the ICC's warrant of arrest against Netanyahu, even though we totally respect the ICC's warrant of arrest against Vladimir Putin. Here he is.
The secretary was, I think last year it was, where he was talking about the warrant for Vladimir Putin said, this was in Senate, said any country that's party to the court has obligations and should fulfill those obligations. So should countries' obligations to international treaties be sort of selective in this way?
No, every country has to make their decision. Every country has to make that decision for themselves. But I don't think there is any equivalence between the case that the ICC has brought against Russia and the case that it has brought against Israel. When you look at the difference between the two countries, Russia is not a democracy.
When you look at the difference between the two countries, Russia is not a democracy.
Does not have a
Okay.
Russia's not a democracy, but Israel, an apartheid state that doesn't allow millions of people to vote, that's a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Does not have a functioning independent legal system.
Israel legitimately has thousands of people in their prisons that they have given no trial or charges to. And
yeah, they just checked in a 14-year-old prisoner. I was looking at this earlier today, their youngest one. This is not juvie. There's no juvie in Israel. This is a 14-year-old boy in prison.
This is from this might be a little bit older, so he might be the youngest one now. There had been a 4-year-old in prison.
Oh my God.
And there was video of the 4-year-old headed to his trial, which is really just literally 60 seconds in front of a judge. It's not really a trial. And he's headed, the 4-year-old is walking there with his chocolate milk in hand to have his trial. It's so remarkably repulsive. But of course, all of this proves that Israel does not have a legitimate functioning legal system. It's kangaroo courts designed to uphold apartheid.
Is not investigating violations of international humanitarian law by its soldiers.
So Russia's not investigating violations of humanitarian law, but Israel is. Have you noticed all those successful investigations Israel has done on violations of humanitarian law?
Yeah, they investigate themselves all the time. And guess what? They're always found innocent. So there you go.
Listen, they've tried to find something. They just can't. There's nothing there. What are you going to do?
Israel is the opposite in all of those cases. A democracy with an independent court system that has hundreds of open cases.
A democracy with an independent court system that has hundreds of open cases.
Into allegations against its soldiers.
Hundreds of open cases. You know how many of their soldiers they have in prison for war crimes? I guarantee you it's zero. They do have soldiers in prison for refusing to go commit war crimes. That's actually quite common in Israel. If you refuse to be in the military, if you refuse to be a part of the genocide in Gaza, you will be locked up. So that's common. But maybe that's what he's referring to.
And I love that he's referring to the hundreds of cases against their soldiers as a positive thing in the first place. You don't understand. These Palestinians are furious. There's hundreds and hundreds of cases that are ongoing.
It is important that those processes be allowed to proceed. That is the principle of complementarity under which the ICC was founded. Now,
and one of the few cases where Israel actually did lock up some soldiers was for the gang rape of prisoners. And I don't remember the number they locked up, but they locked up several other soldiers for that. But then the people in Israel, there was major protests to get those soldiers released because, look, they're doing their job. It's their job to do that. And ultimately, the Knesset had a debate as to whether it was okay to R-word torture victims in Palestinians in prison. And they decided it was fine. So then they released those prisoners.
Now, when it comes to countries making the decisions, they all have to make their own decisions in the same way that the United States has.
So that's one similarity between both Israel and Russia is that neither are members of the ICC, just like you.
Yeah.
If you couldn't hear that, he said one similarity between Israel and Russia is that neither are members of the ICC and neither is the United States.
Also correct. Also correct.
Okay, well, if they don't have jurisdiction over Israel, why should they have jurisdiction over
Ukraine is
Russia?
also not.
So Ukraine is not a member. Ukraine is a sovereign state, however, that has granted its jurisdiction to another country. I think it might have been Poland, another country.
So Russia's not a member of the ICC. Israel's not. U.S. is not. And Ukraine is not. But Ukraine granted Poland the right to give their jurisdiction over to Ukraine to allow for the arrest warrant against Putin. Of course, if you think logically, you go, well, why couldn't Palestinians, why couldn't Gaza just get something similar, get some other country to give them jurisdiction for the ICC?
And allowed that country to intervene for them, which is something that sovereign states can do. There is no sovereign state of Palestine.
There is no sovereign state of Palestine.
We want to establish a Palestinian state, but that is the fundamental nature of our jurisdictional.
So we, the U.S., have made sure Palestine can never be a state, and therefore they can't have ICC jurisdiction. But man, what a bummer. He's like, we wish they could do something to have jurisdiction, but they just can't because they're not.
You could tell by if you just look at the twinkle in his eye and the smile on his face right now, you could see that he really cares about Palestinians.
Oh yeah, he's just bristling with joy over.
He's just a charmer. He's a charming guy.
But it is so laughably hilarious in the midst of a genocide to say, oh, we wish this arrest warrant would really hold some weight, but unfortunately, there's no jurisdiction there. And the reason there's no jurisdiction is because Palestine's not a state. And how did that happen? Oh, we, the U.S., have tried so hard to make Palestine. No, you have made sure that Palestine is not a state, and by the way, they will never allow it to become a state as long as the U.S. and Israel is an empire. Because
we don't know why they're not a state. I mean, they must be. I think they're just a bunch of anarchists over there in Palestine. They don't believe in statehood. We want them to be a state.
Yeah, it's all by their doing. They just won't refuse to become a state. I don't know why that is. This actually is something I've said many times, and I didn't know about this fact, the ICC jurisdiction. But this is the reason Israel and the U.S. will make sure that Palestine is not a state, because when you become a state, you have certain international law rights that they never want Palestine to have, such as the right to the ICC, apparently, but also the right to have a military, the right to come and go as you please. These are all rights that Israel needs to make sure Palestine never has. So, but also, I have to tell you, the Zoom comedy event, and it's going to be an awesome event. I have now titled it "The Only American in Tibet and Other Stories." It is an hour of my comedy straight to camera. It is also opening acts John F. O'Donnell and Naomi Caravani from Redacted Tonight, as well as Eleanor Goldfield. And the tickets are a whopping $5. It's Wednesday, December 11th and Saturday, December 14th. Grab your tickets. It could sell out, which it actually can do, even though it's via Zoom. That's at leecamp.simpletix.com. Would be amazing. And if you hate it, truly hate it, I will refund your money. That offer doesn't come often in stand-up, you know.